Hello and welcome back to Outside the Box. My name is Wanners.
This is Daniel.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Joss.
And we have some explaining to do because last week, of course, put it out on the Twitter that we'd be taking a questions thread, only for me to completely postpone the podcast. Turns out it's super hard to go on a away day, come back, fit in all the MLS games you need to in your mind for a podcast. And by the time I got home, I was all traveled out. Fellas, have y'all ever been there on an away day? And what's your best away day experience? We'll start with that. Let's start with let's start with Joss.
Last season I went all the way out to LA to watch the Open Cup final versus Sporting KC's LAFC. And we were cheated out of that game. That first goal should not have stood. And then Eric Tommy, euphoric equalizer. That was probably one of the best fan experiences I've ever had. Obviously, we lose in extra time, and then we have to fly back because it was on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I think. And so it was altogether, I spent about 36 hours in Los Angeles for this Open Cup final that we ended up losing. But damn, it was a good time. Met a lot of cool people. Got a picture with Matt Beasler. So overall, I would do it again.
Hell yeah, we're here for the potential cup win, but inevitable cup loss, right?
Yep.
What about Jeremy? You got a good away day story?
It's tough because there are three that stick in my mind. The first one obviously is going to be Seattle. When in 2022, after they won a pretty important trophy that I'm not going to acknowledge, and for reference, they won this trophy back in May. And they delayed their banner hanging ceremony for it until early July when the Timbers came to town. And it was like they were throwing an entire party to rub something in our face, which, I mean, they've done this before. It's not the first time they've tried to throw a party and they've invited us to be the guests. I specifically remember during the pregame, they had 3 paratroopers come down from the sky, just landing on the field while the entire crowd just put on their Wojak faces and just like laughed like idiots. The Timbers, by the way, they won 3-0 on the day. And I remember going back to my car at the garage and several Sounders fans threw water bottles at me. And they all missed because they have no aim, and I don't even think they have arms because most of the people from Seattle are just like humanoid fish anyway. And then the other 2 are actually in Salt Lake City, where in 2016 I saw Lucas Milano perform the most outrageous flop I have ever seen.
I know. I think that is an infamous flop as well.
It is. I was in person for that, and I was cackling. It's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen on a soccer field. And then final one last year, another Salt Lake trip, the 3-3 draw, where the Timbers were down 2-0 at halftime. I was covering the game with a reporter who it was his first time ever covering a Timbers game. And he was stressing out at halftime as they were down 2-0. I was like, they're going to come back. They've done this all year. They're going to keep doing it. And after Evander scored probably the best free kick I've ever seen from him, I just stood up in the press box and I was like, are you kidding me? Just like outwardly cussing at him because the team doesn't learn anything. Then Salt Lake scores late in the second half, right before stoppage time to take the lead. And the entire stadium's erupting, and I'm just like, now the Timbers are going to score again. They don't learn anything. They don't learn. 3 minutes later, Jonathan Rodriguez is open at the back post and heads home across from Miguel Araujo. And I'm just standing up in the press box just screaming like, these fucking idiots. They don't learn anything. They're just going to take this indomitable spirit, their refusal to lose, and it's going to doom them in the long run. They refuse to acknowledge that they can be beaten on the road, and it just pissed me off beyond belief. So I think those are 3 different away day stories, all with a little bit of just a different mood to each of them. But yeah, it's always fun. I encourage everyone to go on away days.
I love the Lucas Milano shout. That is a streets remember type player, honestly.
Not only did he flop in that game, he scored. I think he scored like 4 goals for the Timbers while he was here. So that was truly a Lucas Milano game.
Daniel,
Brilliant work from him.
You got any, Daniel? Any getaway stories?
Nothing with Charlotte involved. Me and my buddies have a habit of visit a city, go to an MLS game. So got to see Philly beat the Red Bulls, which is always an awesome rivalry to see. But when you see it up close and personal, they really do hate each other. And there was just constant fights. But Burke scored a goal in the first 10 minutes, and then they just fought each other basically for 80 minutes when Philly won in 2021. And then down in Dallas, we got to see Dallas play LAFC, and that was when that's when LAFC just acquired Bale, and we saw Chicho score a goal in the first 10 minutes, and we got to see him live. We're like, this guy's disgusting. How did he get to the MLS kind of player? And then in the 5 minutes later, Ryan Hollingshead got a red card, and then Dallas just dominated for the remainder of the game. And I always recommend people go see Dallas or go to a Dallas game up in Frisco when they get the chance, because it's a very unique atmosphere. It's a very unique stadium, and getting the chance to see the Hall of Fame is always cool too.
Mine is my entire away day trip at Cincinnati. It's still probably the best trip I've ever had. Only had 2 Ubers total that trip, one to the downtown city and then one out of it. But the Rapids won 2-1 against Cincinnati. Very, very awesome road dub. And if you haven't been, Cincinnati is a gem of a town. I think it's very, very underrated. But enough about our away day travels, fellas, because we had a whole slate of MLS games, 15 games of MLS action. Now I tried my best here to assign some games to everyone, but we're gonna open it up. We're gonna start right at the last match day, or the last match of the match day. Houston Dynamo 1, Inter Miami 4. The biggest news coming out of this, or coming into the game, was load management for Lionel Messi, who decided to rest against Houston Dynamo for Cavalier of the Jamaican Premier League. Fellas, and if anyone's really itching to talk about this team and you know what you saw from them, is anybody feeling good about Houston Dynamo right now?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
And we all know the big glaring issue, right? It's that they sold one of their best center backs in Michael.
Yeah. And they haven't replaced him.
No, and I mean, you got Femi Awodesu out there who playing out the back again for Houston. You'd think they'd learn their lesson from last week of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't play it with our, very fresh center back here. And he got caught out. Segovia with a brace, Suarez with the goal, and Allende with the goal. So the front 3 all got on the score sheet. It wasn't until Nicolas Ladero came on, and if you're hoping for some production from Ladero at his age, it's some concern at Houston. Let's start with Jeremy, man. What did you make of this game overall? How are you feeling about the sides?
I'm going to start with a quick Miami point, and this was the main argument I had against Messi winning MVP last year, is that they're tougher to play against without him in the team because they're just tougher against the ball. Now, Houston, on one hand, they struggled to score goals last year. Taylor Twellman did a very good job of reminding all of us that on the broadcast. But even so, the way Miami was blocking in their own half to just defend Houston. I was like, this isn't something you'd usually see when Messi's on the field. And their willingness to defend from the front, you wouldn't see that either. But the way they've been able to reload, because they lost a lot of guys. They lost Facundo Farias, even though he was injured all of last year. They lost Diego Gomez. He went to Brighton. And, yeah, they lost some other, like...
Campana.
Yeah, they lost Campana. They lost some other squad players. And it's a squad game. If you win the Shield, it's because you have a really strong squad. But Segovia, who I think I mentioned on one of our earlier episodes, as a guy who I really, really liked, so I was naturally pissed when Miami signed him. He's going to be fantastic. He is absolutely going to be fantastic in this league. He's already scored 3 goals in 2 games, even though a couple of them were due to playing out of the back errors. I think they've done an unbelievable job to reload. I think Allende, coming in off that left, just he's got some really good speed. His goal was probably the pick of the bunch. So
Pretty ass
for Houston, meanwhile, they're asking a lot of Jack McGlynn, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, he'll be able to handle it. But they're still asking a ton from him, and they still don't have the horses in attack to be able to consistently create goals. Could Ladero potentially play his way into a starting role for this team? I think given the way that their attack has been set up so far, yeah, I really think so. Especially while they wait for both left wingers that they have, because Aliyu is technically a striker. He's only been playing on the left because Inali and Quinones. Yeah, is it Quinones?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Quinones. Nelson Quinones. Yeah, because Inali and Quinones have... So, once both of those guys get back, it's going to be... There's going to be a little bit more dynamism in the attack. But as of right now, just the same way they've been playing for the past couple of years, where it's just work the ball, keep the ball, and just try and create chances, usually through Amin Bassi. Hopefully Ponce is going to get on the end of some crosses from Griffin Dorsey. It's just not working. And when the squad is predicated on being able to build out from the back, and you lose Mikhail, and Sviatchenko only played the first 45 minutes yesterday, they need a center back. They really need a number 10. And until both of those holes are filled, they don't look anything like a playoff team, and potentially even spoon contention based on just how catastrophic they've been. And that's not even getting into losing Steve Clark either, who had one of the better seasons as a goalkeeper last year. So, yeah, I don't see a ton of hope for them until they bring in some new players.
Daniel, what'd you make of this one?
Houston, not good. Inter Miami, very good. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. You get to bring on guys like Robert Taylor, David Ruiz, Federico Redondo, Leo Alfonso. I mean, those guys are coming off their bench. They are loaded. Teams in the East are going to have to take points off them early. I say that simply because they are in the middle of a load management period, because they're going to be stacked with games from now until June. So if what we predicted with them being a top 4 team in the East and not winning the East just to come to fruition, teams in the East are going to have to steal some points from them early. And that's my take on them. I guess if I'm going to say anything positive, well, I'm not going to say anything positive about Houston because they don't deserve anything positive right now. But Luis Suarez, man, at his age, he is just an animal. He's like a shit brick house. When you watch him play, he's immovable. And I don't remember him being like that in his prime, I guess. I mean, he was always kind of a chippy guy, but man, he just boxes out defenders. He just does everything right. So he's a fun guy to watch, even if he can't move.
What about you, Josh? Anything else to add before we move on to the next match?
No analysis from the game that hasn't been covered by Jeremy or Daniel so far. I do want to say, though, it is kind of satisfying seeing all the Houston fans who are going to show up for Messi be disappointed. I'm kind of happy that happened, and that's the hater in me.
Their team won, though.
But true, but all the fans who they probably had like a 30-minute drive home, and who hadn't gone to a Dynamo game before this. It's kind of satisfying for me. And CBS Sports Goal also put out a video of like fans saying, "Oh, I drove this long for him, and now he's not here."
Wah, wah,
Womp
wah.
womp. Support local. Like,
My-
I'm tired of all of that, of all of the Messi mania. And as someone who he came and played in his own stadium earlier this season in Kansas City, I can't lie. It was anger. It made me angry hearing people celebrate when he scored. It's like, okay, what are you doing?
My biggest thing about the game is not so much what happened in between the white lines. It's the fact that you kind of get this feeling of a big night feel when the graphics for Sunday Night Soccer come up, only for the presentation to be just the same as any other MLS game. I really don't get the dress up here for Sunday Night Soccer. I mean, you could say like, oh yeah, it's the game everyone's watching. That's what makes it Sunday Night Soccer, which, it's always nice when kind of, you have one game that everyone is kind of watching at one point. But beside that, I want to call it out because aside from just the nice little gradient graphics and the name, there's nothing defining about Sunday Night Soccer for me right now. And so I don't know if you guys I know we have some NFL fans here, but when I started watching on Amazon Prime, they had the Next Gen Stats broadcast, made it look like something out of Madden, which I thought was very cool as a newbie to the NFL. MLS could do something like that as well, and Apple definitely can. I know they got the money. All these fuckers got the money for it. So I guess that was my big rant on
At the
broadcast.
Can I expand
least.
on that?
Yeah, go for
I
it.
really want to expand on that because for me the bigger issue is they build this up as a huge standalone game. They dedicate so much time to a really special pregame show. From what I heard, I didn't watch the pregame show because there was another game going on. Like, if you're gonna take the time to try and make this some big, huge production, don't schedule your big pregame show in the middle of another game.
Yeah, I got
Period.
Yeah.
I got two pet peeves with it. One, I don't want to watch the pregame show because I've watched it. I don't want to watch the pregame show, have it say this broadcast is ended, then have to click out and go to where the game actually is. I don't know why, but that's just a pet peeve. It does not feel seamless. The second thing is use that Apple Music money, make a song. I look forward to Monday Night Football songs. I mean, I look forward to listening to it. It brings value to it. It makes it memorable. It's something little, but do something to make it stand out because Swan's right. It does feel like every other game, outside of Andrew Weeb drinking beer with the supporters before the game, which is kind of neat.
It is.
I think it says something about like Apple's production that the most memorable part of their soundtrack for MLS is the waiting music that they have over while you're clicking into a match and you're waiting for it to start.
It's so good
like,
though.
It's so good, but it's the best like little theme song they have because like the da 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 like okay, that's fine. It could be better. It's nothing on just the pause screen fan montage that they have.
Joss?
I think they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, similar to what Paramount has with like Thierry Henry and Jamie Carragher and Kate. God, it's not Abdo anymore, but that whole group. And yeah, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it's emulating anything. I do like the Andrew Weeby bit. I love seeing the fan culture and having him really embrace it. But overall, like you're saying, there's no Carrie Underwood waiting all day for Sunday night vibe that I'm getting. It's not an event. It's not, and maybe it's because it's not as accessible as Sunday Night Football is. Maybe that's what it is. But so there's something to be said about maybe it's the Apple TV deal, and that's why it doesn't feel as lively as like Sunday Night Football does. But overall, yeah, it's not something that I want to like. I'm getting dressed up for, and I'm like, yeah, here we go. let's get I don't know, who was the lady in the Audi commercial last year? Get her on a track and let's hear it. Let's see what she's got.
I can't believe I just found out Cape Abdu got married from Josh, and now I'm heartbroken. And now
Yeah,
I just
You're
found
out of the
it out.
running, buddy.
I'm sure she was thinking about you as she read her vows.
I'm heartbroken. Kate, no.
Moving on, let's talk Vancouver and LA, because a team that had very little off-season signings. They only really needed one in Jaden Nelson. He had a great game last week, a little bit more quiet this week as we start to see some heavy legs of that CCC rotation. LA Galaxy looking a little rough, as a young Wanners once pointed out on the show. They ain't got the juice, I don't think, without Puge and Peck. Let's go over to Josh, man. What do you make of the half strength LA side here?
Look, no Puge. Obviously they're waiting for him to come back, and this could come from a place of bias, but trying to replace Dejan Joveljic with Christian Ramirez, it's not fully. I just don't think that's a like for like replacement that maybe they were hoping for. And I know that in the news, a lot of LA Galaxy players have come out, namely like Maya Yoshida and Marco Royce have come out, kind of lambasting the Major League Soccer rules about like salary caps. And I think it was a Yoshida quote saying like, "We won the cup and got worse." And I might be paraphrasing here, but I think that's what he was at least going for. And I can see where he's coming from, and that must be so frustrating for these players. You know, when Joveljic moved to SKC, he was saying like, "I didn't really want to move," and I really can't blame him. Honestly, I really can't, and that's coming from a supporter of the team he moved to. What I can make of LA Galaxy, yeah, I know. When we'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
What I can make of the Galaxy is they're just playing like a team. They're playing like the Galaxy 2 years ago when they came 13th, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that Greg Vanny lost it. Is this LA Galaxy team gonna fade into oblivion?" Then they went out and they spent big. They brought in Marco Royce. Namely, he was that guy, the marquee signing to come in, and Paint Sill and Peck, all players that instantly bolstered this team, and they had a great offseason last season. And this season, it was more about the departures than it was about the additions. And I think that's where the Galaxy have really lost it, is they haven't replaced as well as they did last season.
Anybody else want to jump on that? Anything on the Whitecaps?
Can I talk about the Whitecaps really quickly?
Yeah,
after watching them just spank the Timbers at home again to start the season and then have another good performance against the Galaxy. The difference between Vanny's Whitecaps and Jesper Sorensen's Whitecaps is that they're not allergic to using the middle of the field anymore. And their press is a lot more organized. And against the Galaxy, they were forced to go wide a little bit more. But when they can use the middle, they're a really, really dangerous team. And I don't think there's a ton you can take away from that Portland game because they spent the majority of it up a man. And what happens is what happens when you're up a man, and the Timbers just failed to organize their back line effectively and organize their team until really halftime. So I think that Vancouver has a lot higher of a ceiling than I previously thought. And they still have an open DP slot. I'm interested to see what position they target for that, because they don't need a striker for it. They don't need a left winger now because that's where Gald's been playing. Maybe a true number 8.
Stuart Armstrong, maybe?
Well, yeah, he'd be a pretty good help. I wonder where he... I think their midfield does a really good job of covering ground and then also hanging on to the ball. And then Jaden Nelson exploded week 1. Not so great against the Galaxy week 2. I think they were more prepared to play against him. But on the Galaxy front, I think they're missing Paintsil more than they're missing Pooch right now. So that's crazy to say for like because Ricky Pooch one of the best players in this league, but they're really missing another like vertical threat. Yeah, they're really missing more specifically vertical because Fagundes is still good on the left side, but he just likes to cut in more, and that allows the fullback to overlap. They need someone out wide who not only can hold that width but exploit the space out there. So I think it's going to be a rough go of it until specifically back. Then we might see the something similar to the Galaxy of last year, even if we won't see the exact thing because Pooch is still out for months.
Daniel?
Yeah, Gold and the New Jersey Mario Gomez, as Tom Bogert has coined him, Brian White. I mean, they still make a very dynamic 1-2 punch in the MLS. And I think a lot of us were short-sighted in thinking that wouldn't go away. They're still a very good team. They can still score goals. My question is, where is Nascimento? They brought him on loan for Botafogo. He's supposed to be kind of like that guy, right? And things clearly aren't working with Christian Ramirez. They subbed on Christian Ramirez and Marco Royce, I believe, in like the 70th minute, if my memory serves me right from watching the game.
Yes,
and
sir.
they looked worse. And I don't want to blame Marco Royce just yet because we've all seen what he can do over the last 5 years, even in his older age. I think it might just be a chemistry issue with Christian Ramirez. So why not try Nascimento if he really is supposed to be that guy? So put him on the back. Is he hurt? I was gonna say put him on the back of a milk carton saying missing contact Greg Vaney if found. But do we know when he's coming back? Because that could make a difference.
Unsure right now, though.
Unsure.
I will say I don't think Christian Ramirez is the issue here. I think it is just they're missing Pooch and no one can move the ball as well as he does. And so long as you just snuff out Peck, I mean Peck like barely saw the ball in the second half, right? And so once you nullify him, it was pretty easy going. I will say the one thing that detracts me from Vancouver, and this will be the last thing we mention before moving on, is Sam Adekugbe came off in the 32nd minute, and there was a noticeable shift in momentum swaying over to the Galaxy. Eddie Campo just kind of looked like a deer in headlights out there when I saw him play. So overall, I think they're gonna miss Adekugbe or Adekugbe, as they say. I kind of go back and forth between the pronunciation there, but not a fan of Ocampo so far, and I'm hoping it's not going to be too much of an issue for the Whitecaps moving forward. Go ahead.
Ocampo, really quickly, he's also a right back mostly. He doesn't really play on the left that much.
That makes sense.
He's
why
right-footed.
Yeah, messed up on that side because it did not look good.
Very curious to see if the LA Galaxy get past Herediano this week in the CCC. Actually, genuinely.
They rotated it for it, so you got to hope they do. Let's move on to Saturday's games. We're going to go up top to San Diego versus St. Louis. Had Josh on this one, watching what was a very, very, very dull game. Overall,
you gave me the good assignment, man.
I know. I'm looking at a lot of these, and outside of the yeah, Josh is gonna get like Miami and a bunch next week because
I think I deserve it. I've been in the trenches.
Watching, I was hoping, Snapdragon, big stadium opener, right? That they'd be up for it. To me, it looks like St. Louis is just fine being playing nothing burger, really, soccer. What did you make of that one, Josh?
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. Is St. Louis offered virtually nothing in terms of chances, in terms of it's so different from the St. Louis that we're kind of used to seeing, that Bradley Carnell, Red Bull sort of infused ball where they're all over the place for 90 minutes and they'll press you high and win the ball high and then punish you for giving the ball away in those chances in those areas. And here it was just nothing like that. Obviously the game ended 0-0 with the purveying news coming out of it being some chants from the fans, but I think also it's important to notice that Irving Lozano was he left the game with what was thought at the time in some MLS spaces to be an ACL injury, but I think it's been ruled a hamstring. It's been ruled a hamstring according to what I've seen. So hopefully that's accurate. But yeah, on the field there was not a lot to talk about. I did think that I'm expecting more, especially after San Diego went to the Galaxy the week before and dropped 2 on their head and didn't concede any. Coming back to a home opener in front of your fans, and it just wasn't exactly what we were expecting. But I think that San Diego so far, maybe I'll leave my words a little bit, they have been better than expected. They've gone out there and they're still undefeated. Like I said, beating the reigning champions, and St. Louis just didn't look like themselves. I think is the best way to put this. They were very timid. They weren't high pressing like you expect them to. And overall, this could be a very, very drab year for them. I know a lot of fans were looking for players like Marcel Hartel to maybe show up and be that driving force, but nothing. It's been a sort of nothing burger season for St. Louis so far.
Anyone else want to jump on before we move on to the next game?
No, I'm happy I didn't stay up for that one.
I do want to say one thing really quick. I want to say one thing quickly about St. Louis. They haven't scored a goal yet this year. That's concerning.
Very concerning. 180 minutes and no goals.
Well, when you got Joao Klaus as your leading man, it's gonna take a while. He hasn't scored since what, May? So we're about to approach a year of Joao. I mean, let's put it out right now. Does Joao Klaus go a full year without scoring a goal based on 2 games right now? I mean, I put this question up now and watch him get a hat trick this weekend. But let's say this: between now and May, I'm gonna set the line at 2.5 goals. Does Klaus get 3 goals before his year drought? We'll go quick fire. Daniel, over or under?
Yes, over.
Jeremy.
I don't think he's going to be starting the majority of games. I think it's going to end up being Betcher's job. So I'm going to take the under.
Joss.
I'm going to say no goals, no assists, and we get a 007 meme.
0012 for 12 months.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's going to get a random hat trick the night before.
Maybe against the Galaxy next weekend. Maybe. Like, that would be... Of course, that would be the time he shows up.
Hopefully, right? Well, maybe not if you're their rival fan as you are. But let's move on to Portland versus Austin. We got Jeremy on that one. Jeremy, tell us about Portland. Tell us about Austin, because I have a lot to say about Austin. They don't have a ball progressor. They don't have anyone that can find Vasquez, and that was the biggest concern for me. And the XG shows that, the overall game flow shows that. Jeremy, what was your take on this one?
I do also want to start with Austin, because the scuttlebutt in their locker room after this game was a game they probably should have won. They took a lot of shots. There weren't many good shots in there, but I fully agree with the fact they're missing a ball progressor, because Danny Pereira, he's a good player. He is. I like watching him. I think he's a quality MLS midfielder. He doesn't really offer as much in the ball progression area as I'd expect. Neither does Owen Wolf. I thought Ilie Sanchez would be a player to watch in this, because he was going to try and ping diagonals out to the wings, because they got 2 pretty fast wingers out there in Bukhari, who should be playing on the right, and O'Brien, who is playing on the right.
And who should be playing on the left.
Yeah, but Bukhari on the left?
No, O'Brien needs to. They're both in the wrong positions.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an Estevez failure. But all in all, for this game from Austin, I thought they looked a lot better and more lively when Basard Sabovic entered the game for Ilie. He was more willing to drive that ball forward as he was playing as the single pivot at the base of their midfield. Um, I didn't take a lot away from their opening day victory against SKC because I'm just thinking this attack needs time to gel. We don't really know what Estevez is going to see Uzuni as. In this game, once Uzuni came on the pitch, it seemed like they turned into a dual striker system, which I don't know if that's the best. I think Uzuni would be a little bit better coming in off the left and then allowing probably John Gallagher, if he can reclaim his starting spot, to overlap on that left side. I think that could be a recipe for success for them. But yeah, I wasn't too impressed by Austin, but I could kind of see the vision. And Vasquez, to his credit, he tried a lot in this game. He really, really tried a lot, and he just wasn't getting any kind of service. Moving on to the Timbers, who needed a win in that game, and they got it because Ian Smith noticed that Austin was playing with two strikers up top and left an entire runway for him to just carry the ball unmolested until Brandon Vasquez gets back to make a tackle, which is a foul. And then David Da Costa sends in a chaos cross, which I think that's my own terminology for it. Just a really dangerous cross that the keeper has no idea what to deal with. Like, do you let your defender try and clear it? Do you go out and get it yourself? But it was on target. It goes in. And excellent for Da Costa. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite Timbers. He just constantly smiling. He's just really happy to be here, which is an upgrade on the former guy. Portland's main takeaway from this one, though, was just how well they defended set pieces and how solid their rest defense was. Because even though Austin doesn't really have a ball progressor, Bukhari was nullified. O'Brien was nullified. There weren't really any chances for Austin to try and like break down the Timbers' block. Most of their best chances were shots from distance, and their best one of the night was a Brandon Vasquez free kick that got saved by James Pantemis. So I think there were some really encouraging signs for Portland, and I don't think Austin fans should be overreacting to that result too much.
Let's head over to LAFC, New York City. Daniel, had you on this one. What are we making of LAFC? Definitely, I mean, we talk about teams that don't look like their former selves in St. Louis. I don't know how LAFC is, they're winning these games, but it's not as convincing as one might have hoped for. Still, the result is big. What did you make of this one between LAFC and New York City?
It left more questions than it did answers for both teams, really. LAFC, one, they find a way to squeak out another win at home. It's kind of what they have been doing for years now. Their midfield looks much improved. Timothy Tillman looked like a different player week 2 versus week 1, but I feel like he's always one of those players that grows into the season as it goes. Igor Jesus continues to impress me. My biggest question is for them, as the season progresses, you want to continue taking advantage of a guy like Bouanga while he's in his prime, but he doesn't seem to be getting much help from Ibobasi, and he doesn't seem to be getting any help from Olivier Giroud. Yet again, they do seem like they are very organized in defense, like they always have been, and their midfield continues to gel as the season progresses. So I don't expect them to be the same high-powered LAFC, at least early on, particularly with some schedule congestion that they do have, but they're still a very good team. My questions kind of lie with New York City FC. I just need someone to answer this for me. How do you go the U22 route and not start a single U22 player on your roster? No, don't get me wrong. NYCFC is going to win games this year. They are not a bad team. They are not incredibly deep. And when Morales is taken off the pitch, they look significantly less organized in their attack, but they're a good team. Their starting 11 is good enough that they should be a playoff team in the East, but they pretty much had the result that was expected from this. When you go into BMO, you don't really expect to get a result out of it. They played them tight. I'm just I have more questions about their roster construction than anything. I'm curious to see what they do this summer to try to bolster their attack. That's pretty much all I got on it.
I think the new coach, Pascal Jensen, also said it in a post-game presser that he needs some help. And when you sell a guy like Santiago Rodriguez, like, you know, he had been Maxi Morales' understudy for the longest time. Maxi leaves, comes back, and they kind of have a good partnership for most of last year. Santiago playing on the left wing and Maxi back to his usual attacking mid spot. But, you know, I didn't feel as though Santi had lost that spot. I thought he was classed in both positions. And then to be sold now, and you don't have a guy of his pedigree right now on the team. They could use someone like a Santi right about now, but I imagine we'll see them figure it out in the summer. Yeah.
My fear is they're waiting for the stadium, and this is what we're gonna get.
Lame duck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my fear for them.
I mean, it's also tough to go from New York to LA. So I also want to mention the travel there. That's across.
It's only a 6-hour flight, Juan. It's only a 6-hour flight.
Yeah, I mean, I get cranky on a 2-hour flight, so I can only imagine a 6-hour. But yeah, moving on. Colorado versus Dallas. I just recorded Burgundy Banter this morning with Jared Geisler, so we'll have a lot more on that one if you guys want to hear more about what our takes were on the whole game, minute by minute, as close as we can. Jeremy, I had you on that one. Let's talk Luciano Acosta on Dallas, man. What did you make? After last week's kind of fluky win against Houston, kind of one exposing Houston for them being not that good, and then Dallas, you're like, maybe they are that good. Maybe they are that good. Maybe they're not. What do you think, Jeremy?
I just think that their success this year is going to be it's directly tied to how well him and Musa play off each other. And the second goal that Dallas scored in this game should be a pretty good sign of things to come. Really good hold-up play from Musa. Really good pass and run from Acosta. Colorado's usually a tough place to get a result, especially at the altitude. So I didn't really have any like major takeaways from this game from the Dallas side, other than that Acosta scored and they failed to win. But I think the loss of Tafari is a big one. They're still gonna figure out how to recover from that. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be a team that is going to keep getting better because they have a new coach and they're going to figure out they're just going to keep learning how to play under him. But Acosta and Musa together is a pretty good battery. I don't want to say anything about Colorado in this game other than that I'm happy Oliver Larraz has the number 8. It seems like he's earned it.
We love Ollie. All of Box State Footy is behind the Denver De Bruyne, who did get 2 assists in that match, playing as a wider threat there. So one to look out for as the winger core at Rapids is still very, very weak. We're getting Larraz on the wing now, so interesting season there to be had. Let's go over to Minnesota and Montreal. Going to Josh here for this one. I was hoping that this would be your electric match to watch, maybe after the Kansas City result, hopefully, that you'd get a good one. But a 1-0 in this one. Calvin Yaboa comes through for Minnesota, gets their first win of the season. What'd you make of this one, Josh?
I've watched. This is the second week in a row that I've been assigned to a Minnesota United game. Well, last week they played out in LA against LAFC. Now this week they're at home at Allianz Field playing Montreal. Now Montreal are coming off of they went down to Atlanta last week and they scored 2 goals past Brad Guzan. So I was also kind of in that feeling like, okay, Montreal scored 2 goals away at Atlanta, who are my field winners prediction, and so I'm expecting like it's a home opener for Minnesota. I know they didn't score last week, but we should get some fireworks here. And I think that my summation of Minnesota United is that Eric Ramsey has turned them into MLS Stoke City, and that's not a bad thing. They play a 5-back. They don't concede very many chances. And I mean, the goal they scored was off of a long throw-in, from Michael Boxall that bounced around off of, I think it was Olasei, and fell to Yeboah for him to tap in. That's what you want. There was a clear pattern of play there where Yeboah got unmarked, managed to wrestle himself free and tap in at the back post. It wasn't tap in; it was basically on the line for Yeboah to score. And from a Minnesota United point of view, if you're a fan of that team, everything kind of went right here. You won your home opener, you didn't concede a goal, and your DP number 9 scores a goal. I know we were all high on Minnesota at the beginning of the season, but I've been really impressed by them defensively. I mean, it took an Abobasi wonder goal last week to beat them at LA, and they were defensively this 5-3-2 that they play was outstanding. And you have to remember that last week Robin Lowe didn't start the game, and he came in for this game and was just unbelievable. I thought he ran that midfield. And I'm a big fan of Yeboah. I like what I see from him. I feel like he will succeed here in MLS. He's just got the build for it. He's got the frame, and I think give him a couple years, and Minnesota will be selling him on back to Europe where he can go and do well. On Montreal, for Montreal, it's another game where they've lost by 1 goal. There weren't very many chances for them to talk about, and I owe that a lot to more so Minnesota's defensive prowess than Montreal's lack of attack. I do think that they have something. They have something for us. They're very strong in attack, and we'll see what comes from them. As the season progresses, and they get these patterns of play down. But a big win for Minnesota, and I really think that us being high on them in our preseason predictions is going to come true.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I noticed there is Jefferson Diaz was a new center back signing for them last season. He sits for Morris Duggan, which is an awesome MLS name. Morris
True.
Duggan. So it looks like, after 2 starts, it looks like that's, Duggan and Diaz are going to be fighting for that position. But Diaz actually subbed in as a right wing back for Bongo Kule Longwane, who I think should be playing as a striker personally, but they like his width on the right there. Overall, a very neat performance for Minnesota. Not as neat for your Sporting Kansas City.
Okay, great segue.
We're finally here. We were kind of talking about it before the pod started, but man, San Jose is rocking. At the cost of I'll give it to SKC, a very fatigued SKC perhaps. But Josh, we'll go right back to you. What'd you make of this one?
Thanks. So I was at this game, which was awesome. Great to see the home opener not sell out, and that was great. I think this is a game of one instance that I think changed it. And you can talk about like the goals and everything. Chicho Arango, Josef Martinez, like they do what they were brought into. Arango scored off of a deflection off the defender that fell to him, and he nutmegs Polskamp in goal to make it 1-0. Josef Martinez scores off of a calamitous MLS goal. I don't know if you guys saw it, but good lord, and that was the goal that I was sitting behind, and I honestly didn't know what happened until I saw the ball in the back of the net. So felt good to watch that. Dejan Joveljic gets a goal to make it 2-1 in the 27th minute. I never saw the handball replay. Me neither. Really don't know if it was or not. I saw one grainy GIF, and I was like, I don't know if this is or anything. And from like 50 yards away, that was like it. So I really couldn't tell you if that was a handball or not, but they went to VAR in the stadium and they didn't overturn it. So I'm assuming that they got something, or there wasn't enough to overturn on the field. But the instance that I'm talking about is Hernan Lopez getting sent off. He got sent off in I think it was around the 55th minute, maybe.
Yep,
I'll have to double
right
check
around
that
there.
to make sure. Right around there, yeah. And at this point, I'm like, okay, 52nd minute, Hernan Lopez is sent off for a second yellow. Honestly, in the stadium, I couldn't believe he made the challenge. It was so ridiculously stupid. And honestly, yeah. And once that happens, I'm like, okay, this is our time. We're gonna close in. We're gonna choke out San Jose. This is a big result for us. And then Bruce Arena remembered who he was, and Bruce Arena remembered that he is the godfather of the low block. And oh my god, the nastiest low block that you will ever see. And I think players came out, namely Jovic came out after the game and said, I wish it stayed 11 men because we were better when we were playing 11 men. And if that doesn't speak to not only, the out coaching job that Bruce Arena did to Peter Vermes, that also it speaks to like the lack of cohesion that this SKC team has right now. But I don't know what does. I don't think that I can't remember because SKC were attacking my goal in that second half, the goal that I was sitting behind, and I don't remember a good chance that we had. In all honesty, I don't.
No, I mean, it was
San
the
Jose
penalty.
closed up
It was
shop.
pretty much the penalty.
That's exactly right. I know. Yeah, we had better chances when we were playing versus 11 men. So, we could chalk it up to SKC coming off a midweek game in Miami, coming back, but you got to show up for your home opener. You really do. If you want fans to stick around and enjoy the team, you got to show them that there's something to stick around for. And losing to San Jose, a San Jose team that, while they're in the middle of a rebirth and a rebrand, they still have that sort of it's San Jose aura that they've had for the last couple of years. Where you're kind of expecting to come away with a win. But yeah, props to San Jose and props to Bruce Arena. The way that Mark Anthony Kay came on, and I couldn't believe how good he was. He was covering every inch of grass in that midfield, and I turned to my friend who I was watching the game with, and I said, I wish we had someone like that, but we don't at SKC right now. And Mark Anthony Kay is such a, I know he's been around the league, I think 4 or 5 different teams now, and I wish that he had just made a stop in Kansas City because he would be so good for us. But yeah, props to San Jose, and especially props to Bruce Arena because that is the nastiest low block I've ever seen. Like, I had to bleach my eyes afterwards, but it was effective, and they got 2 goals from their big summer striker signings. So not much more you can ask for.
I'm gonna send this passing map to y'all in a little bit after the show. It is a very I may as well just put it up now in the chat, maybe get a little reaction from y'all. This is the passing network for SKC. It is not a good one. It is a constellation almost. Usually you get a lot of combinations between the players, but unfortunately for SKC, I was on record saying their immediate need was not a 9, and for them to go get Jovic when you had the god himself, William Agata, that kind of made me mad from a sporting decision. But beyond that, I mean, you sign Andrew Brody to hopefully move Jake Davis into the midfield, still a right back. And between Basong and Denbei and Labeled, there's not a clear-cut starter between the 3 of them, so it's kind of a mid-off at that position right now.
Well, Basong has been playing in midfield. That's where he's been playing.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was at Sporting Kansas City had their season launch party, even though we've already played 4 games yesterday. And they did a whole thing where they bring the players up onto a stage, and they announce them by position. And notably, Davis and Basong were both in the midfielders, not in the defenders. So, Andrew Brody did get some minutes. I know he's in this passing map. He's the right back position in this passing map that you sent in. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a good pass. I mean, there's no cohesion. I'm totally on board. It's bad.
Hey, and also let's not discredit that San Jose defense, because I did praise their defense despite it being one of the worst last season. I did say it was injured for much of the season, so good to see Bruce shoring that up. Let's move on. Not too far from KC is Chicago. They took on DC in a very chaotic match. Did we all see that golazo at the end? The absolute banger from Jacob Merle to tie up the game.
Incredible goal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was an insane bicycle kick. Something of like Benteke-esque, but it's coming from Jacob Merle, who is looking like a renewed striker. We had Jeremy on that one. Jeremy, what can you tell us about this match? I'm sure you probably had a lot of fun watching this one too, right?
This could be probably one of the best results of DC's season, because there really wasn't a lot to like from this from their perspective, but somehow it was entirely a deserved result because Benteke had a chance to tie this game with a penalty. And the dichotomy between the designated player stepping up to take a potential game-tying penalty, blazing it over the bar, and then the academy player coming in and just scoring a crazy bicycle kick to tie this game. That's really funny. That's MLS at its best. For Chicago, Greg, I see what you're trying to do. I do. I think the Jonathan Bamba signing so far has been a really, really good bit of business. However, you're still the Chicago Fire, and that's why that bicycle kick went in.
Fairs. I am not a fan of Sergio Origel in midfield, though I do like his inclusion more than a Gaston Jimenez or Navarro from last. I thought both of those guys sucked for the longest time on Chicago. So, I mean, the holding midfield position's still wide open. I think that's the next likely. That should be the next likely position to fill there for Chicago. But beyond that, this was a chaotic match. Hugo Kuipers, I'm telling you guys, he's already got 2 now in this one. Give him some more minutes, give him some more time. I think he's going to be a real menace with Bamba next to him, with Zinkernagel behind him as well. Moving on, let's talk about a very fun Philadelphia Union side. I did not see this coming. If there's anything, I mean, for everything I had a good inkling about, the biggest one I was wrong about was Philadelphia Union, and I had to have the main Philly man who was kind of back there defending Philly amidst all the slander. Daniel, you had a chance to watch this one. What did you make of the Philadelphia Union, their new head coach, their new press? Looking very, very dangerous here and very, very sharp. What say you?
Yeah, the Philadelphia Union, very good team. And it comes from a few different things. We could talk about Ty Barabos. We could talk about his hat trick. He looked amazing. We can talk about Uray's hold-up play because he was an unsung hero of the game. We could even talk about how good Quinn Sullivan is and how much he's actually progressed year over year. But I think the man of the match, you set aside goals and you set aside everything else, has to be Makiana, 20-year-old. The big question mark we had about Philly is what are they going to do with center back depth? And he was tested by what is potentially the top 3 front 3 in the East in Evander, Denke, and Kubo, and he didn't just hold his own. I mean, they looked good, and they looked devastating in attack. This Philly team, I don't know. I don't know if this is a one-off. I don't know if they're just hot. Most teams don't start off the season hot. I don't know if they're just hot, but they look like they're the real deal early on. I'm not going to touch too much on Cincinnati because I still believe they are a really good team. I think this game kind of falls into that one-off category. I think they're really missing Matt Miazga in the back. But yeah, no, Philadelphia they're just devastating, man. They're really good. Quinn Sullivan's really taking that next step, and their offense is smooth in transition. Like they're good.
Yeah, the only pushback I will give on the Cincy one is they are a bit fatigued coming out of CCC. I mean, a lot of these CCC teams are going to be like, coin flips when it comes to their form after, because like on one hand you got Kansas City, who is kind of just drowning amidst all this competition.
Okay, man.
You got Colorado just barely on the life preserver, and then you have teams like RSL, that get embarrassed and are out, but then kind of do best, make do on that elimination and get a good result. And then you have Cincinnati, you have LAFC, you have Columbus Crew, you have these teams that have been here before and they're willing to sacrifice some results in the beginning. I don't know if that's it for Cincinnati. I just think the press was, I think stylistically, the Union came up against Cincy at the right time, and it'll be interesting to see what they look like, removed from, later down the season, because I know Cincinnati is going to want that win back, and you better believe they might get their lick back too.
100%, which is why I'm not nervous at all about this result for Cincinnati fans. I think it's more of a one-off than anything. I'm more excited to see how they perform against Tigres here this week, for sure, particularly with their coach change.
Going to the other two Philly haters, known haters as given, maybe not haters, but we did not have them high up, mostly due to depth. Bruno Damiani coming in, Jovan Lukic coming in, like Macania. All these are like unknowns, right? And then each one of them has proven good. Has I guess not proven yet, but like they all look not too bad. Damiani even got a goal at the end, kind of a garbage time goal. But I'll open it up to you, Josh, and then Jeremy. Are we ready to revisit our Philly takes, or give it some more time?
That's a good question. Look, I am not ready, mostly because I live and die by my pride. And I just like Cincinnati. Yes, great team. They do have some of that fatigue to worry about. I'm waiting to see what happens if injuries start setting in. Philadelphia are playing very high octane, win the ball high up the field, and I think Doyle tweeted out a clip where like it might turn them clumsy, and I think that's what led to the Evander goal, was a clumsy giveaway. So if injuries start setting in, do they have the depth to replace their first 11 that's performed at such a high level? I'm not so sure, and I think that playing at a level such as this, injuries are more likely to happen. So it remains to be seen. I'm still out. I want to see if they can replace the depth, but obviously they maybe eat my words so far. So,
Jeremy?
Yeah, I had them at 14th. Both of you guys had them in 15th in the East.
Same thing.
I am worried. Well, Toronto's just so much of a dumpster fire that it does make a difference. But I think that those depth concerns are still really real. There's only one match per week right now. They are playing Bradley Carnell soccer right now, which it worked for the most part in 2023. And then kind of stopped working last year in St. Louis, and it cost him his job. So I don't know how much depth Philadelphia has to weather the storm of an entire season, but it's a good start for them, just like how it was a good start for St. Louis in 2023. And then as the season wore on and more teams were able to figure them out, they started to fall off, and then they lost to their rivals in the playoffs, and that wasn't very fun for them. So,
you know who that was?
Even though Philadelphia, it was fun for Josh, undoubtedly, but but the I think the overarching concern is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And right now, they're doing a lot of sprinting, both on the pitch and like metaphorically, because they're just trying to rack up as many points as they can at the start of the season. And I thought they took advantage of an Orlando team that doesn't have any center backs. Well, they don't have an established center back pairing right now. That's ridiculous. Also, an Orlando team that's missing Cartagena, who they still haven't replaced yet. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, if any way, they can evolve over the rest of the season. I still don't think they're a playoff team, but they won 2 games, and that's good for them.
Speaking of Orlando, they faced Toronto. Daniel had you on that one as well, and I actually did watch this one live as well. What did you make of Orlando here? I'm kind of willing to go err on the side of fluke win, but I'm interested to see what you saw out of Orlando.
Fluke win's kind of a good way to put it. Neither team looked particularly good, if that makes sense. I mean, Toronto was able to try to play their game. They just don't have the talent to do so. And Orlando was able to capitalize on those mistakes that happened because of it. When you look at their rosters and how they stack up next to each other, Orlando should not have struggled like they did for as long as they did. And I actually want to go back to a tweet that you actually tweeted, Juan, on the game day. Yes, you tweeted, "Can we promote Forge FC to the MLS and relegate Toronto to the CPL?" And that's kind of the vibe I got. It kind of felt like classic MLS from 2018, where it was just kind of disorganized ball. Now, I don't really know where that comes from Orlando's side. They don't have the same excuses that Toronto does. So I would say I'm a little bit worried from just a mutual standpoint of Atlanta and what they've invested into their midfield, what they've invested into their winger depth. Where's that attack really going to come from? But their counter ball does look good. That's the only bright side for them. No real bright sides for Toronto. I'd say Jonathan Osorio still got some legs in him, but other than that, Richie Laryea looks like he got hurt, and there's no indication on when he's coming back yet. I was scrolling on my phone while you guys were talking about Sporting Kansas City. Sorry, Josh, I'm not super interested in that one.
Okay, but it's another straight. Got it.
I was scrolling my phone seeing if there was any news on Richie Laryea coming back. Not that I think that's going to make a massive difference this early on in the season, but you know, he's a seasoned player. He is good when he is healthy and fit. And there's just no news on that one yet. So, yeah, not very moved by either team personally.
Yeah, and that's kind of. I mean, Orlando scored 4, and you know, Cesar Araujo, nice free kick goal. Alexander Freeman just wide open. Who did he beat? I think he beat Wingo on that. Wingo. I don't know what's going on with Wingo. I think he's out of position. But beyond that, I do think Laryea does add something to this team, and they were just trying to. I mean, by the time he was gone, and by the time they kind of adjusted, it was already too late. And Orlando really, really kind of took advantage of the backline shift there for Toronto. I'm not about to go on here and say that Toronto are, you know, one to look out for. They're just a Richie Laryea away. But I mean, yeah,
that's definitely not the case. No, that's definitely not the case.
But I do like Corbinu. I do like their new striker. If we can get Insigne out of here, get a new maybe like a nice two-way player in the midfield. I mean, it really should be Osorio, but you know, you're asking him to play various positions there. They need a younger Osorio to build around, really, and I think the team would be a lot better. But right now, when you got your DP Insigne just nowhere to be found, not really likely to, you know, come in and help out. It's rough days for Toronto. Moving on though, let's talk New York and Nashville. I had a Josh on that one.
Yes.
I am very much in the opinion that Gary Ball is probably better than Callahan Ball at this point. I don't know what we're doing with Alex Muyl going from the left wing to the other side of the pitch. There's a player in Eddie Tagseth for sure. But what did you make of this one, New York and Nashville?
The thing is about this BJ ball is that it's also supposed to coincide with sort of a Nashville 2.0. That's kind of what they've been sold. That's kind of the promise that they've made. And so far, it hasn't been anything. I mean, have you noticed a difference? Maybe it's less effective. Maybe that's what they meant by 2.0 is that they get worse. I don't know. But usually that's not how that's supposed to go. I will say a couple things. Nashville so far they haven't scored. If I remember, I don't think they scored last season. Or I'm sorry, last game. Who have they played?
Yeah,
They did not. They did not.
Right.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, and then they haven't scored. They obviously didn't score in this game. They were the second lowest scorers in all of MLS last season. So Nashville 2.0 is looking a lot like Nashville 1.0 on the scoring front. The problem is that they've conceded 2 goals, and that was in this game against the Red Bulls. Interestingly, they lined up if you use FootMob, I'm a big fan of them. It says they lined up with a back 5, but like MLS's graphic, they lined up with a back 4. It looked a lot like it was the back 5 instead of the back 4. With Alex Muyl, like I said, like you touched on, what are we doing with Alex Muyl? I'm not so sure. I really don't know what Nashville can really take out of this game. I mean, they put the ball in the back of the net. Sam Surridge did. It was rolled out for an offside, so maybe that's a plus. But overall, from Nashville's point of view, it's just been a sort of mess to start the season. I feel like props to Joe Willis. There was a sequence he had in the second half where he made this crucial double save that really, really was impressive. So Joe Willis, at least they still have him rock solid at the back. But as you go forward, it becomes less and less so. I do want to talk about the Red Bulls a lot, though. I want to give them a lot of credit. Obviously, they fell short at MLS Cup last season, and this season they started strong. And Emil Forsberg, I think he just won 6 more months away from his wife and kid after that goal. I'll just say that. What a finish! He was. Yeah, unbelievable finish. And Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who, in my opinion, one of the best names in world soccer, he hits the post, and that leads to the rebound for Mohamed Sofo. And if I'm a Nashville fan, I'm looking at that, and I notice that Mohamed Sofo does not have a picture on FootMob. So I'm getting scored on by the anomaly, if you're on NBA Twitter at all.
I really liked Sofo, man. That dude runs.
Yeah. Yes. A young Ghanaian striker. I mean, he's up and down. He's all over the place. He's full of energy. And I want to shout out this young midfield for the Red Bulls. You got Noah Isle, you've got Peter Stroud, and you've got Daniel Edelman. All of these guys were fantastic for the Red Bulls, controlling the game, and they're all 21, 22 years old. That's a strong base that they can really build upon. A lot of Edelman came through the academy there. Isle was there last season, and he kicked on into this season. So the Red Bulls have got a lot to build on. And as you go back to the defense, Sean Nealis is still. Wait, is that Sean? Yeah, it is Sean. I know his brother's in there too. But making sure my information is correct. Sean Nealis, and Alexander Hack with a very reliable goalkeeper and Carl Miguel behind them. The Red Bulls are prime. I think they're in a good spot. I think they're in a good spot to continue from where they were last season, and it really seems like their pattern of play have been as good as they were in the playoffs last season. So really good win for the Red Bulls. And in the battle of the number 10s, it was Emil Forsberg who comes out on top.
I'd also like to say something quickly about Choupo-Moting, who I think has done the most that he can over the first 2 games without scoring a goal. I think New York has a striker again.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got the pedigree for it. I was kind of underwhelmed when the signing was for, but they just show what I know, right?
I think he fits in well so far. One guy you didn't mention was Valencia, the left wing back there. I thought he was fantastic, and I was going to be a little bit hesitant about this team if they had Raheem Edwards as a starter, but no, they're giving Valencia the go, and this kid is amazing. I don't think they're going to miss John Tolkien that much. We got to see Valencia's opinion on the earth, if it's flat or not. Maybe the O in his first name gives a little bit indication there, but Hani Mukhtar, guys, I'm ready to say is washed, because man, I'm starting to not believe in him anymore. But
do you guys just get that vibe when he gets into the box and he'll just rip a shot into the back of a defender, and you're like, he didn't even look for a second option. He's just trying everything in his power to get a goal under him.
Yeah,
I kind of feel for him.
Do you think it's a lot of frustration going into that?
maybe.
Yeah.
I just know they could use a more mobile guy than Mukhtar right now, because he's playing as a striker. I mean, I will say he's out of position right now, and it doesn't look like he's, being utilized as that, ball progressing 10, that finishing 10. It's a lot of weird hold-up play for Mukhtar right now.
I missed my step over king.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, the stepovers. Oh my god. How did they keep working? That was my big question. Like, he has like it's the one trick, and it just kept working the entire time. I was like, you know what he's gonna do? Stop it!
Yeah. It was like when the European settlers came over, Native Americans showed them good food. They were like, whoa, I have never seen this before. What the hell? That's why Henny Mukhtar did the stepovers in MLS.
Step over king.
Speaking of doing one thing really well, Columbus Crew versus New England. The possession game for Columbus still very strong. Daniel, what did you make of this one? This one and the San Diego and St. Louis are kind of neck and neck for most boring, drab games. But at least this one had a goal from Jason Russell Rowe. Daniel, any thoughts here on New England? I know there's not much other than Columbus passed the ball around and scored, and that was pretty much it.
Columbus plays beautiful footy, and I think we've all known that now for going on 2 years, pretty much since Nancy's been there. The MVPs of the game, and you guys are going to probably call me crazy for this, and they've been the MVP for 2 games now because they've only given up 1 goal in 2 games, which is incredible compared to where this team was last year. We gotta give our flowers to I'm gonna name 6 players, so excuse me here. To Yusuf, Feingold, Cabellos, Fofana, Bai, and Jackson Yule. Because those guys are gritty, man. They sit back there in that low block and they just absorb pressure they had possession for 36% of the game. And those guys are just back there scrapping and fighting for their lives. It was a boring game, but when you put it into that perspective, it was kind of fun to watch. It kind of reminded me of a rugby match. It's going to be interesting if this team can gel based off of how their defense is, how scrappy they are. If they can gel on the attack, and Carlos Gil and Campana can start forming some kind of relationship, even if it's on a counter, that's going to be exciting to watch. The needle's kind of moving for the New England Revolution for me. Maybe a bubble team, simply because that kind of foundation's kind of hard to come by from a defensive scrappiness. They're just gritty. They're kind of interesting to watch from that perspective. That's all I got. I'm not going to speak on Columbus too much. Columbus is always fun to watch. Yeah, they're always fun to watch.
Cucho who, right? I will agree. I think New England showed some bite here defensively. It's just now tying it all together, right? And doing a lot of work this is, let me see New England versus DC, New England versus Chicago versus, some of these more easily, comparable teams than Columbus, who are really just going to pass the ball and sit on their goal and go to a CCC matchup against LAFC midweek. So plenty.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this is probably the most interesting game that I did get to watch, mainly because it was a boring watch. But while you watched it and you watch Columbus struggle to score, you think in the back of your head, man, Jeremy told me 3 weeks ago that Caleb Porter teams in their second year are always significantly better. And this team is like this nasty Columbus team struggling to score right now. Like, what is going on? Maybe it was just because it was a cold day up in New England. I don't know, but I'm interested. I am intrigued in the New England Revolution.
Let's talk our final two games here. We have Salt Lake versus Seattle. I am ready to put Salt Lake in the fraud team column. I'm going to open it up to everyone here since, this is a nice 2:30 game. What did you guys make of Salt Lake, Seattle? We'll start with our Seattle man, non-biased, always tells it like it is when it comes to the Seattle Sounders. Jeremy, what did you make of the Sounders' performance here on the road?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, but at the same time, I feel like for this game, Seattle had their chances, but Salt Lake could have been up like 3 or 4 goals by halftime, which is pretty nuts because I think the only major backline change was Jackson Reagan going to the bench after playing midweek and John Bell taking over center back spot, which, wow, center back. Back 3, Brian. He's trying new things this year. He's trying to put more clubs in the back. However, those clubs can't account for Nuhu just being unable to hear his goalkeeper, who's been the same goalkeeper since Nuhu arrived there, and heading the ball into his own net. I thoroughly enjoyed that. In the second half, though, the introduction of Pedro de la Vega, I still am not convinced by him.
Really?
I still am not. Like you can see bits of the flashes there, but I'm just not fully convinced that he's going to be as goal dangerous as they need him to be. I think he can be creative. He's certainly a little pest out on the wing, and if he can just get to the byline, keep sending in cutback balls, my question is to who? Because that's where Raul Ruidiaz would always set up shop. He'd always be ready to receive the cutback ball. And Jordan Morris is a post runner. He wants to run to the post. And Jesus Ferreira is still figuring out where he fits in. Mm-hmm. Albert Rusnak is scared to go into the box. They don't have a guy on the left wing who is going to try and get into the box and get on the end of those. That's not Paul Rothrock's thing. So this is kind of a quintessential Seattle performance because, yeah, they created a ton of like small chances, but most of those were just good cutback balls to no one in particular. So I'm thrilled by it. I'm absolutely thrilled by it. They did win CCC. Of course they did. They threw away a game against Charlotte, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. But they're still a really strong roster. They're still really high floor. So this isn't like, oh, put them on fraud watch or anything, because they haven't won an MLS game yet. Like, no, they're still good. Everyone knows they're still good. But the other part of this is obviously what Salt Lake did, because I think they rebounded really well from getting pantsed by San Jose week 1. I still think they're lacking a serious I think they're really squad is one word for it. I think more than anything they're still lacking like a really direct winger. I don't know if moving Gonçalves out to the left is going to solve that. I think he's still better through the middle. They just need someone on that right-hand side is going to crash the box and can create a little bit more on the dribble. Congratulations to Forster Ajago for scoring his first MLS goal. It wasn't Elias Manuel, because Elias Manuel got to Utah to get the fuck out of there, and he did. So that makes him the most sane signing in RSL history, because he said, I do not want to be in Utah at any point. So you can only applaud him for that.
My favorite RSL player of all time, actually.
Yeah, no, he's an I call him an RSL legend for that. I'm more interested to see where RSL is going to go from here, but they still need investment. They still have roster slots open. It's still way too early to even like consider them as like a serious team, even though a lot of people are just gonna get Wojak faced and they're gonna be like, "Wow, they beat Seattle!" Like they beat Seattle a lot at Rio Tinto. They do. Like this is just something that they do. The Sounders just cannot win there. So I don't know how much this game says about either team, but at least for me, very enjoyable watch.
Anybody else want to talk about either team? Anything they noticed before we move on to the last game?
For Jeremy, I just think that there's nothing better than a hate watch. And anytime that Seattle pulls up to Sandy, Utah in the last 14 years, you get a beautiful hate watch. So I can applaud the level of, and I recognize how good that must feel.
Well, I was trying to tune into my own hate watch, and I got a fraudulent RSL win after a Nuhu own goal in the 10th minute that kind of RSL sat on, and then 87 late winner by Forster that just catches RSL out or Seattle out on a 1-2. Very easy stuff there, but no hate watch for me.
Defensive juggernaut Seattle Sounders, by the way, getting caught out on a goal kick. Oh, brilliant work. Also, I'm debuting a new bit for this show. It's called the they can't keep getting away with it meter, where I just take a note of every single fraudulent thing that has happened to the Seattle Sounders this year. So far, I've gotten both deflections in the first leg of their CCL game, then Jordan Morris shooting right at the reigning goalkeeper of the year, and the reigning goalkeeper of the year, Christian Kalina in this case, being unable to just keep it out. But my favorite inclusion on the list, Pedro de la Vega finally scoring his first goal at Lumen Field after signing for the Sounders last year. And he did that because he passed the ball to himself off of an Antigua defender in the second leg. So I'm looking forward to see how much more stuff they could keep getting away with, even though it brings me great pain whenever I have to update that list.
Daniel, anything here before we talk about your Charlotte?
I am so upset with Seattle. So, a quick little tidbit about Daniel. Every Saturday night, Daniel likes to get home from work, throw on MLS 360, and place a massive parlay. And I always make the parlay around noon when I'm at work because the early games. And this is the year, or this week, I went 10 for 13 on a $3 parlay that would have won me $140,000. And Seattle Sounders can't win a freaking game in Seattle, and they have the deepest roster in the league. How do you have a team where you can sub on Jesus Ferreira, Pedro de la Vega, Paul Arriola, Jackson Reagan, and Danny Leyva, and you can't win in freaking Salt Lake City? Yeah, that's what I have to say about Seattle. They're one of the reasons they're on my hate list. Them, Cincinnati, and St. Louis City. They cost me $140,000.
You'll get that in
That's
game.
all I have to say.
Don't worry.
That's nothing compared to the emotional toll of watching the Seattle Sounders week in and week out.
Juan, is there room in the budget for us to animate that whole story from Daniel?
Well,
like he comes home from work, he looks at his phone, he throws his phone, or something like that. That's kind of what I'm envisioning right now.
I'll have to get on the Fiverr. We'll see who can do that for us.
Okay.
As long as there's a graphic of him just punching a TV with the Sounders logo on it.
The worst part about it is me and Jeremy hop in this chat 10 minutes early just to catch up and say hi to each other. And he's like, what are your storylines? And I was like, man, I almost won this bet and Seattle really screwed me over. And he's like, well, I could have told you they weren't going to win in Salt Lake. They have the deepest roster in the MLS and Salt Lake sucks.
And they can't win in Salt Lake. They just can't do it.
Stupid.
Let's talk about our final game here. Made it, and within good time too. So far, if you're listening, thank you guys for listening this far deep into the podcast. We do have our final match here: Charlotte and Atlanta. A fantastic opener to the MLS games. I thought, kind of a pedestrian first half, and then in the second half, welcome to MLS, Wilfred Zaha. Let's go over to Daniel, and then we'll open it up to everyone and get on going after that. But Daniel, what'd you make of Charlotte, man? Are you feeling the Zaha hype as much as everyone else is?
Guys, I'm not feeling Zaha hype. I'm feeling MLS Cup.
Oh,
I'm feeling cuppy early on, man. I'm feeling good. No, so when you watch the game in the first half, right? You're watching Charlotte absorb all this pressure. It was kind of a back and forth game, but Latte Loth had a shot or two on goal, and they kept getting the box. Saba time looked like it was going to happen a few different times. Miggy ripped 3 or 4 shots from outside the box, and you're like, oh man, we're just going to absorb pressure all game. We'll be lucky to get out of this with like a 1-1 draw. That's what I was thinking at the end of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started picking up the pace a little bit on offense in the second half in our counter. First off, do you guys ever see the meme where Patrick Mahomes throws the ball down the field and he says, fuck it? Who's that? Tyreek Hill's down there somewhere.
Tyreek Hill's down. Yep. Oh yeah, I lived it.
That's all Charlotte does when they absorb pressure. Is just like, fuck it. Agamang's down there somewhere. They just boot it down there in hopes that he can do something. But then something switched, and I don't know exactly what it was. I should probably go back and rewatch it, honestly, but I was just so hyped up in the moment where they started connecting balls in transition significantly better, and it was happening through Wilfried Zaha. We had to give a big shout out to Tim Ream. I didn't think he'd have the legs to lock down Miggy Almiron the whole game, but he did it. God bless his soul. And then we also need to have the discussion. Adelson Malanda and Andrew Privet might be the best center back pairing in the MLS, and I would be open to argue with that with anybody. Because those guys, they're dogs. I mean, you hold Latte Lath, Marinchuk, Saba, and Almiron to 0 goals. Granted, you're at the bank, so you got that home field advantage. But man, just nothing but good things to say about this Charlotte FC team after week 2.
Give me Morris Duggan and Michael Boxall. That's all I'm saying.
I'm with you on the Morris Duggan train. I'll be honest. I liked him a lot against LAFC. Plus, his name, like you said, great MLS name. Throw a Devin in there as his middle name, and we've got an all-timer.
No, but you're
Morris
right, man.
Devin Duggan?
Yeah. I know you got chills just saying it.
Charlotte is stacked, though. I don't want to take that away from Daniel, because I mean they really were just a quality player in the attack, and when you can find someone like Zaha who comes over having been playing on teams that very much play Dean ball in or some version of Dean ball in the Championship and the Premier League. So it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to have a former Premier League manager teamed up with a former Premier League, talented attacker. The one thing I will say about Atlanta, though, is their midfield, like between Bartosz Szliz. I know Johnny Fortune he is a dog, but there's nothing there for me, guys. That mobility in that midfield is going to be their Achilles heel, because there's one thing. And I tweeted this out also. They are missing Brooks Lennon and Pedro Amador, because whenever Atlanta tried to, move the ball through one of the wings, they just couldn't. And, you have a midfield that is on wheelchairs half the time, can't even move properly in there, move like a tank. You're not going to get the ball up to Latte Lath and to the rest of, Saba or to Almiron. With these guys, but open it up to everyone else. Yeah, what's up?
Do you guys think Click and Brooks Lennon make that big of a difference for this team right now?
Yes.
Not Click, but
I'm not
Lennon.
sure about Click. Yeah, Lennon definitely.
Immediately, yes for Brooks Lennon. They're missing. They're missing just some wide outlet, because both of their wingers like to get inside. They're missing the overlaps badly.
Yeah. It was non-existent. Even though I thought Matthew Edwards did well playing defensively against the ball for as much as he could have, you really do need those wide backs. And Click is in that middle for me of like midfield guy who is not going to move the ball well for you or protect it. I think he can easily get pressed out of those positions, and it may be a Johnny Fortune moving forward. Honestly, like that's how low on Click I am. Honestly.
Wow. I mean, the DP Click.
Yes, I mean
the DC DP
the
Click.
DC, yes.
DC DP.
So it's not like he's he is the rental. He is the rental that you get someone else pay for. So
hey, the dude was nasty in like 2018. Give him credit.
I mean, so is Zaha.
True.
So is Zaha.
Yeah, but Zaha still got that dog in him.
That's true. I can't take that.
Daniel, can I ask? So far, I mean, Zaha obviously, like, I think he's probably going to have the biggest impact of any DP in Charlotte's history. Would you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, who would be the next contender? Karol Swiderski? I mean,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It is
Enzo
early still, you know.
Copetti.
yeah, I mean, Enzo Copetti was a flop when he came in. He scored all those goals in Argentina. I was like, this dude's gonna dog walk the MLS because I'm not gonna lie, I fall into the hype of South American leagues, particularly when you're on Twitter and everyone talks about how much better they are than the MLS. I'm like, oh, this guy scored 22 goals last year at Racing Club. These guys, he's gonna come up here and he's gonna dog walk the MLS, and then he looked like he was. I was like, I can't believe we bought this guy for $10 million after like the third game. I was like, this guy stinks. So brother, this guy stinks. So yeah, I mean, the second best DP is gonna go down as Karol Swiderski, which is kind of a Sporting Kansas City level DP in my opinion there, Josh. But
Oh God. Shots fired.
All right.
No.
Show your stars. Show your open cups. Put them on the table.
No. Charlotte, it's one of those funny things where like if Zaha doesn't play, then you're stuck with Abada and Kerwin Vargas on the wings, and then it's the same exact Charlotte team essentially as 2024. And that Charlotte team can still win games and be a top 8 team in the East. But when you add in a guy like Zaha, who's just so good in transition, it changes the ball game, and it really opens up things for a player like Pep Biel. I mean, we knew Pep Biel was a good player, but it turns out when you put talent around a guy who's talented, he's even better. Who would have guessed that formula? So
Never would have thunk it.
Yeah, never would have thunk it.
Do you think, because obviously he's only on loan, do you think that there's a universe where Zaha's convinced to stay? I saw him on that throne that Charlotte put out for him after the game. He looked pretty happy. I don't know.
I think he's happy in Charlotte. It's gonna depend if his wife can come over and stay here permanently. That's gonna be a big thing. He did just have a child, but he is happy here. Although we're in a couple different group chats, and the growing theme was, man, he looks really tired. Man, he looks really unhappy to be here. But honestly, I just think that's his demeanor. I just think he never really looks super excited on the pitch, even when he scores. He's never really been that guy. So I think he's kind of got some bite to him, and he's just kind of angry all the time when he's out there. It's kind of what it looks like.
On a scale of Evander to Bobby DaCosta, how happy do you think he is to be here in Charlotte?
Scale of Evander.
So Evander
Bobby
being 1,
DaCosta.
and then DaCosta, who's always smiling, and number 10. Where would you put Zaha?
I'm trying to think of a player comparison for.
Have we seen him smile at least in a Charlotte uniform?
He smiled when he was on the crown right after he.
On that throne.
He was taking a picture with somebody right after he told somebody he'd autograph his shirt after he was done. If anyone saw that video, who would be the DP equivalent of like a number like a 6 overall, like a guy who's just kind of happy to be there. Like Facundo Torres.
Maybe, yeah, we'll give you that, even though he's gone now.
Yeah.
Jerion Shaqiri?
No, I don't think he was ever.
He was.
I don't
think he ever got that high.
I don't think he was ever happy to be in Chicago.
Maybe Bastian Schweinsteiger then.
That's a valid one.
That's a good one. He's like Schweinsteiger. Yeah, yeah. I think we'll get him. Oof. I think, man, it's hard to say. I think we'll see him in 2026. I don't think we'll see him past then. But we'll enjoy him while we have him.
Sounds
Okay.
like a plan to me. Let's start with Daniel. Where can they find you, bud?
You can find me on Twitter at VoxProMLS. You'll see me on there as Major League Shill.
Jeremy?
Elon app at Sports Guy Jeremy. Blue Sky at jeremypeterman.bsky.social. On the interwebs, on my website at cascadiafc.substack.com, where I'm currently working on a massive think piece for a Timber who has a big role to play this year, even if I don't think he realizes it yet.
Ian Smith, maybe?
Ian Smith would be a good shout for it, but no, I think Ian Smith knows exactly what role, and his role is to go out there and just put in man of the match performances at left center back, despite never having played.
Josh, where can they find you?
The Twitter sphere at Josh Bathtub, as well as on Instagram at the same at, and also on my SKC fan channel, Off to See the Wizard.
You can find me at Wanners715 on Twitter, Wanners.bsky.social. Follow Box State Footy at Box State Footy, and be sure to when you're done listening, maybe while you were listening, you could have done this, but give us a review, give us a thumbs up, give us all the good praise, keep us in that top circulation amongst sports podcasts, preferably the MLS ones. But yeah, with all that being said, we'll be back next week for another MLS wrap-up on Outside the Box. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see ya when we see ya. Bye-bye.